welcome back to another episode of Digitalk Architects. Today we have Derek Major with us. Derek, welcome to the show. Please tell us
Thanks
about
for having
yourself.
me. Yeah, for sure. Derek Major. I'm former CEO of a company called Eligio. Currently, I'm a fractional CTO as well, own Eligio as well as a chairman. And yeah, just pretty much a great big tech enthusiast. Love tech, love technology, love business and entrepreneurship. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. All right. So as you said during your introduction, you were a CEO for almost 18 years. Now you've moved from, well, kind of removed yourself from the business and now you just act as a chairman. What triggered that transition for you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 18 years. A lot of people ask me that too. What kind of triggered you to move on with that? I had a friend of mine once told me he was in sales. He'd always say time, luck, skill was a saying of his too. And to me, this is kind of like a lot of this time and luck. It was part of it. I've often thought about what else I could do. In 18 years before 18 years, like I was 24 years old when I started the business. And that's a long career for a lot of people doing one job, especially this day and age. And just, the biggest thing for me was having a lot of good advisors and people around me and having conversations over the years. And it just happened that there's a lot of changes happening in the industry. And I was just, quite honestly, ready to try something else and to help in different ways. And it just happened that the CEO that I ended up hiring to run the company was available. The timing was right, and it all happened really quickly too. So within a matter of a couple of weeks, it was when I made the decision, and we brought his name's Mike, and we brought Mike into the team that we did all that. So it was just timing and the feeling and just kind of going with your gut like any entrepreneur would. So
what is it like to remove yourself from your business that you've been at it for 18 years and then just become kind of like the outsider looking in?
Yeah, you mentioned it, outsider. That's I think that you kind of feel like that a little bit too. I mean, you're bringing somebody in to run your business, and I truly believe that you need to get out of the way, give them the autonomy to actually make the right decisions. So I did spend a lot of time, away from the business. I'm still available even to this day. We have like monthly finance calls and whatnot, but first and foremost, like I stepped away, gave full autonomy, and I said, keep me in the loop. I'm available as a resource. And yeah, the first few weeks, months, I think I'm coming up on 5 months of this now, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking. There's a bit of an identity piece to that too. Like, who am I? What am I? Still going through that today, of course, but really it was the first few weeks was like that transition of there's a bit of anxiety, but relief was something that did pop up. Like I have a 3-year-old boy and a 7-year-old daughter and my wife at home, and I've been able to spend a lot more time with them, and that I think that's kind of offset any of the those things that have kind of come up as far as missing the work or anything like that.
What does your day look like today? Like how has that changed? From being a really busy CEO to now, looking from the outside.
Yeah, it's I'm usually an early riser. The way we have it set up at home now, like I'm in charge of breakfast every morning. So I'll wake up, get breakfast going. Sometimes I'm at the gym, do that. I do check emails. I get daily reports for the company. So I still do read the reports. I'm a data guy, so I still want to know what's going on. So, the company's very healthy, doing really well, but you just kind of want to know what's going on. The odd email gets popped over to Mike, our CEO, just to ask a question here and there. Not too often, but once in a while. But meanwhile, I'm, running around the kitchen and getting breakfast going. This morning was waffles for the kids, getting that all set up and to go. And then most days I still come into the office. So I still have my office here in Vancouver, downtown at Eligio. So I still come in and I just do my thing. Whether it's the fractional CTO work, working with customers now, new customers. And then by 2:00, I'm probably on my way back home. I pick up my daughter at 3:00. I'll pick her up today. And then it's on to activities with the kids. And I'll catch up on a few things in the evening, but not too much. But for the most part, I'm just doing things that I just enjoy, and learning's a big thing for me too. So that time at the office, a lot of it's learning and talking to people and just exploring what's new and what's happening.
On that note, let's get to the fun part. Technology is what we know, especially you.
Yeah.
So when we first met, we talked a lot about technology, but AI. And so let's talk AI from the business owner perspective. You say many business owners know they need AI agents, but you made one really good point is like that most of them are getting confused between needing an AI agent, but what they actually really need is just a workflow, which people will think they're one and the same, but you know, if we're technically speaking, they're very different. What do you mean?
Yeah, it comes up a lot, especially, since I've, stepped into this role of chairman of Ligio and kind of started doing the consulting stuff. I've spent a lot of time meeting with business owners, just not so much for business development, but just to learn, to explore, see what they're up to. And we get, obviously, AI becomes a topic. And they always say, I need an AI agent. I'm like, well, why do you need an AI agent? And I'll give you a perfect example. A friend of mine, he said to me, I have 300 leads in my CRM that nobody's followed up with. He's the sales guy. He's supposed to be the one following up with them. He's like, I need to get an AI in there to get in there and just start, following up on all these leads. And I said to him, really, it's not, your problem isn't, getting AI in there to that's not going to just solve it. There's a bigger ask here, and that's just workflow. So my question to him is, well, what's your workflow for actually in process to actually follow up on these leads? And he's like, wow, I just, as I get a chance to follow up with them. And it's like, well, do you have a cadence? Do you follow up in 7 days? Proposal goes out, do you go out 14 days? Like, what's the actual cadence and schedule? So in that instance, it's not so much just throwing an AI agent there to try and close the deal in a very generic sense. It's create a workflow that, okay, there's a lead in your CRM. It hasn't been touched in 7 days. Let's use a workflow to automate sending out a message. Now, where AI can come in there is maybe we use AI to actually craft a custom message to the person, to the prospect. That might be at the extent of that workflow where AI gets involved. So I think a lot of people think that they hear about all of this AI stuff out there and they think that it's going to be this silver bullet, which, CRM 20 years ago was a silver bullet too. is now this AI is just, you're just going to throw an AI in there, and OpenClaw is going to come in there and do everything. It's like you still have to give it instructions, you still have to teach it. But you can just easily accomplish a lot of that just by introducing a workflow. And AI can help tailor messaging and cadences and follow-ups and prediction and reasoning. But you can just use a workflow to solve a lot of these things.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot easier than trying to deal with AI agents because people, and you know what I found is people get very confused when they hear AI, like the AI chats that we're all now accustomed to, like ChatGPT and AI agent. They don't really understand the difference, because
Right.
they say I need an AI agent, and they think it's this magic tool.
Yeah.
In
Which it
in the
is kind of a
reality,
magic tool in a way. I
kinda,
get it. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
get it.
But yes, you're right. A lot of the times, just a very simple workflow will just solve the issue, and you don't have to complicate it.
Yeah, and I do wonder too, like I think you're hearing AI everywhere. And yes, you and I were in that space.
Yeah.
We're almost like in this little bit of a bubble. But everyone outside of that bubble, they're hearing, AI, ChatGPT, Claude, this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's also that FOMO, that fear of missing out, that I think is a thing too. So everyone feels like, I don't know, I don't care what it is, just give me an AI, right? I think that's a lot of that because they're getting caught up and they don't want to be left behind. And there's always that, the uncertainty, the job uncertainty, and what the economy is going to look like. I can kind of see a lot of that playing into just how human behavior happens.
Yeah. So on that note, where do you see non-technical companies usually go wrong when starting to think about AI?
Yeah, I think it's really similar to what I was just talking about there earlier on the silver bullet. I think if you can go buy something, it's just going to solve your problem. And this is like an old age problem that we've always had. I'll go buy a CRM and
Mm-hmm.
it's all of a sudden I'm going to magically have more sales. And it's not as simple as that. Really, they need to actually stop and ask themselves, what problem am I trying to solve? And once they understand the problem, then it becomes a lot easier because now you can actually start building out a plan on how you're going to tackle that. Maybe going back to workflow, maybe it is, just a workflow. Maybe it is an AI agent, an AI agent, for example, monitoring a help desk. That's a pretty common use case. Salesforce has really articulated how they've converted all of their help desk, or at least the majority of it, to AI agents. So like those are interesting use cases that small businesses can really deploy too. Another cool example is an HVAC company here in Vancouver. And they actually had me fooled. It's the company that did my air conditioning install. I called them up to schedule a maintenance appointment. And I'm talking to the voice on the phone, and we were having a conversation like I need to schedule a maintenance and all this. And she seemed a little off. And I was like, okay, something's not right here. I didn't pick up on it right away. But then she said, have you ever worked with us before? I said, well, yeah, you guys just installed my AC last year. Shouldn't you know that? And then I stopped and I said, hold on. Am I talking to a call center? That was my first instinct. Am I talking to a call center or a human being or someone in Canada? And they said, no. I'm actually a digital assistant. And it just hit me. I was like, oh my God, I got fooled until I asked the question. So that's a great example of, and when I talked to the owner afterwards, he said that they're just trying this out because they have a problem resourcing to actually schedule out appointments. So he really understood his problem. We need to schedule out appointments and all that. So they found a solution that could actually do the appointment setting with a digital assistant. Obviously, maybe they need a hook in their CRM so they can actually tell you a little bit more about the customer and all that. But
Yeah.
but that's pretty impressive, and that's a very interesting example of an HVAC company deploying that kind of technology.
Yeah. That's something we do now, right? We deploy the digital AI assistants and AI receptionists. So we're doing it a lot for health services, home services, so HVAC, roofing companies, appliance repair, that kind of stuff. And
I think it's
coming
great.
so close to sounding so natural that it is very, very easy to get to, I'm gonna say fool, but it's not really fool, but to think it's a real person. You just can't pinpoint whether it's here or somewhere. Which I think, in my personal opinion, it's solving for certain problems. And I'm not saying that for some people it's an issue, because people, generally speaking, hate talking to machines. I mean, I'll be the first one, that there's nothing worse than, calling, your utility company and getting through, 10 options of switchboards. But I think that's the problem it's solving, right?
Yes,
For
totally.
many people, it is making that particular experience much more pleasant, right?
Yeah, people don't like it's not that they I don't think people actually hate the talking to a computer. It's
the
if
experience.
it feels like you're talking to a computer, then yeah, it's but if that, for me, even calling that HVAC company, I wasn't put off by the fact I was talking to a digital assistant. I
Because it
would have
felt
been
natural.
if the experience was bad, but it was pretty darn close that, and I'm sure 9 times out of 10, they're not getting me calling in that's going to probe a little bit when I'm talking to the person. They probably would have get the 9 times out of 10, they're probably scheduling that appointment. So
Yeah,
and
you're absolutely.
and it's not about being. You're right. They're not trying to fool, but I think it's the experience. You're right. So
yeah, because I think for most people that it's much better experience as a person than having to sit down. I'm saying, we're both in Canada, so I'm gonna say like something like Rogers, right? When you call and you have to press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get to the next one, and then the next one it's again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and by the time you get to the 6, it's like, did I need 1 or 2? And then you have to listen to it all over again. Now you just have the conversation and it understand you without having to go through all of that. It's doing behind the scenes, is doing the exact same processing, but to the person on the other side of that line, that experience is so much more pleasant. I think.
Well, one of my last jobs before starting Elygia, I used to work for TELUS. I was a business analyst in the call center there in my early 20s, and I remember when we introduced the first voice assistant, because it used to be IVR, like press 1, press 2, and all that. And it was just the experience was always like we used to hear recordings all the time Oh no, yeah, people were genuinely frustrated, right? And so
because they
it's
wouldn't
and then
understand you.
outsourcing came and all that, right? So it never was a great experience, but you're right. I think it's getting there for sure. I think
Yeah,
it's
the
better than
fact that
outsourcing, honestly. I'd
I
rather
agree.
talk to that robot than talk to someone that is on the other side of the world, right? And I just feel like it's a better experience.
I agree with you 100% because we've all been at one point or the other in one of those conversations where you're like, I'm not trying to be mean, and it comes from me, right? I mean, my first language is not English by any means, but we've all,
Yeah.
and the more recent actually, we've all been in that position where we're calling and you're not trying to be mean, but you genuinely don't understand them, and you're like, I'm sorry, I can't. And it gets to the point where you have to ask for another person, because
Yep.
I've had to ask for somebody. So I think, and that's what I'm referring. I think it will solve a lot of problems, but we just got to get through that hump of people accepting more of of the a way
Yep.
that is not necessarily like the old experience where you had the awkward conversation and the machine didn't understand you. Now it's so natural, right? Like you can get it to a point where it's and to that same point, it's not just solving language barriers for many. It's also solving the time to get an answer. Now if you train all of these machines properly and you prompt them properly, and they have, because now these AI receptionists and assistants have access to so much company information. Many of them can. I set this up for a funny enough, for an IT company where it solves the tier one help desk, right? So
Hmm.
basic issues that don't require level 2 assistant. It can solve, like, it can answer most of those and solve most of those issues without involving a human. And you can
Yeah.
then, if you get to a point, the machine is smart enough nowadays to recognize whether the question or the problem it's beyond their knowledge,
Hmm.
and pass it on to an actual live agent. But the customer also has the option. It's like, okay, I need a tier two. Can you hand me off
Yeah.
to a live agent? And so now you have, you get to a point where for the most part now you don't have to sit for 40 minutes waiting for live agent to
Yep.
solve you a 5-minute question. Now you can solve, like, literally can answer the phone instantly. You don't have to have a switchboard. You can answer instantly. You can, get through most of that basic stuff like within minutes, instead of having to wait that really long period to just get somebody on the phone. So I think over time they will solve a lot of issues. Is people coming to accept that and
Yeah.
compromise on some of it, where you're gonna get the odd time where the experience is not ideal and you
Yep.
have to be transferred to a live agent and wait.
Yeah.
But for the most part, for a lot of people, it'll be a perfect solution where you're in and out very easily. And so it's, and for some people, like your HVAC client is going to be, for some of these small businesses, these are life-changing decisions, right? Like, we actually have an online calculator for some of this stuff, where it's like,
Hmm.
if you are, in your case, an HVAC person, and you're busy you're doing the job, right? And you can't take a phone call from a potential lead. How much is that going to cost you if you're missing 2 or 3 of those a day in a
Yep.
week? That's easily, thousands of dollars in businesses you just lost. And guess what? The main thing we tell those businesses is, if you don't take that phone call, what's going to happen? And the answer is
Yeah.
always, like, they're searching online. If you don't answer, they're going to go to the next one in that Google search. And if that one is not
Yeah.
available, they're going to go to the next. They're not going to sit there and wait for you to call them back. By the
Yeah.
time you
Exactly.
call them back, they've already found another provider that was answering the phone at that moment when they
Yeah.
needed it. So if you
Yeah.
have technology solving for that specific problem, how much more revenue are you going to generate as a result of it? And that line alone is going to change their minds so quickly, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's something as simple as, like, we have, I know we call it like the missed call text back, which, if you don't want the AI to answer, you could always just reply with a quick text. That
Yeah.
it's fast enough that a person might just hold off, half an hour to get that
Yeah.
call back. But if they
Yeah.
don't hear, you don't answer, that's a lead that's gone.
So true. Well, in our society too, it's everything's instant gratification now. It's
100%.
and I think that that's not just watching a TikTok video or a YouTube short. It's literally in our day-to-day interactions. And like if I were to send you a text and I'm like, oh, it's been a few hours. Why hasn't Carolina texted me back? Like, did I do something? Did I say something wrong? Like, it's interesting how 20 years ago it
It
wouldn't be.
didn't matter.
No, so what? It's like you get back to me in a couple of days, and I might leave a
It
message
was
or
fine,
voicemail.
yeah.
It's interesting how we need that so instantaneously, but it is
That,
true, and it's just yeah,
yeah, it reminds me of my kids, right? When you don't like, we are used to, we're older, we kind of live through that. Kids
yeah,
now, it's like they text me if I don't answer within a minute. Literally, they're like, "Mom,"
yeah.
and then you're like, "I'm busy." I was like, "But answer me." I'm like, "But I'm busy."
Yeah.
They don't get it.
Man.
It has to
I'm
be
worried about
instant,
my
right?
kids having phones one day, and my 7-year-old's the one that's always like, I need a phone. I'm like, you're not getting one until you're 18. So, but
I think we transitioned into phones. My kids were 12
yeah,
when we finally caved,
yeah, I can see
but
that. I figure. I
it's
mean,
hard.
everything and kids I hear these days plan everything out on their phones with their friends
They
on
do.
chat. It's like
Yeah.
you can't actually deprive them of a phone almost, right? So it's gonna be. I'll have to pick your brain one day as my daughter gets up there. So yeah,
Hey, listen, I have two teenagers. We can go on about this for hours. Like,
yeah,
genuinely, it's so hard because you want
yeah.
to give them, but at the same time, some days you want to grab it and take it back and never give it back.
I can imagine. Yeah, yeah,
All right. So when you look at business talking about automation, or when they say we need to automate, question mark, could be anything. What's the first thing you look at it for a particular business? I don't have one example, but like, what are
yeah.
those flag things that said, okay, yeah, you do need automation. Hey, you need automation or you need AI.
Right. I mean, the good news is that people have been saying I need to automate for a long time since I started the company, so that's good. So that
Keeps
AI
you
is
in
a different one
business.
now. Yeah, it's so that part's always been easy. I think it just comes down to well, why? Like I can't remember who told me this, but asking why like 5 times, maybe I read this somewhere, but asking why 5 times. I ask you why, and then you give me an answer. I say why again, why, and then you kind of dial it down to really where you really need it. And because a lot of people they just want to automate everything, and it's one of those things where there's unintended consequences that you might do by automating stuff. You might miss things and whatnot. So I always say try to find things, and this kind of ties in with how you look at AI too. Is look at the thing that costs gives the lowest amount of value but costs the most to do. So and that's a good answer of why right there. It's like, well, this is really expensive for us to do this particular process, typically admin or something like that. Let's go ahead and let's go and take a look at how we can automate this. And then once we've kind of understand, the goal, the objective, and then we start mapping it out. That's so the first thing is just why, what's the goal, and what's the objective of doing these things. And it's interesting when you ask those questions. First of all, the answer is usually really long. It's like shooting fish in a barrel because all these ideas come out of why they want to do it, and usually none of them really have to do with automation, which is the interesting thing. But once we kind of dial down to, one or two things, that's where we kind of land on what approach to take. A mentor of mine once told me that think big, start small. So you can have all these great ideas, but pick
Mm-hmm.
something that you can kind of get some value out of and actually prove a concept quickly. Because then it allows you to kind of build and build and build and build till you get to the grander vision, right?
Yeah. See, I look at it as, when you said it's like peeling an onion, right?
Yeah,
You every time you ask, you start here and you ask why, and then one layer goes off, and
totally.
finally after the five, you get to the core problem. Yes, you have to solve for all of these, but the core problem has to go first, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting how we kind of park that in the back of our brain. Like
Mm-hmm.
I ask this of customers and clients, but I mean that happens to me too. Like it's just sometimes you just going back to when we're talking about being in an AI bubble. It's really
Yeah,
difficult when you're in this bubble in your own little business. You kind of forget a lot of the things that are going on the outside, what actually might really be impacting things. So it is an interesting exercise to go through for sure.
absolutely. I find that a lot when I'm out talking to people because, like we said earlier, you and I talk and work in, technology, so AI comes very naturally, for people like us. But then you go out and you talk to business that are non-technical,
Yeah.
right? Non-tech. And they're not like as involved with it. Right?
Yeah.
The answer is like, oh yeah, I've asked ChatGPT a question here and there, or I got one of those Gemini answers, but yeah, they don't use it. I'm like, how are you not using this
Yeah.
or that or the other? I'm just like, and they look at me, it's like, you can do that? I'm like, well, yeah,
Yeah.
but but
Aren't those
it's
conversations refreshing though? Because it's kind of I get really excited with those conversations with like non-tech because they have no clue, and then and
yes,
I just find I get really excited talking. I have to be careful because I can talk about like all these great cool ideas when really they need this. But
yeah,
I have to kind of step back and I always preface with them like I've told you a lot of really cool stuff. It ain't gonna happen right away. Let's start here. But I do find those conversations a lot more exciting because it's there. That might be the part where I just like the education part of learn. I love learning, so I feel like when others are learning too, like I get a lot of
yes,
excitement out of that.
I agree. Speaking of technology, how is AI changing the way you are pricing projects, scope, deliveries? I mean, for us, it's huge. What about you guys?
Yeah, it's well, I'll kind of give a couple answers, I guess, on that. One from the Eligio perspective, what that team is doing over there, and what I'm doing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
exploring. I'm just trying to figure out. I've been saying for years, I want to be able to go to a customer and say, this is how much, and this is the price, and that's the price. It's really hard to do that in a professional services environment. First of all, some
For sure.
customers just want to get billed hourly, but I feel like AI has changed that now, at least for the business executives I've spoken to, that they actually want to get fixed fee now, and the reason why is they understand that they're going to be paying on value. The best example I gave, I was recently at a conference about a month ago, and they talked about how pricing of AI is gonna evolve. Whereas in the past you pay per user per seat. You might spend $50,000 a year, $1,000 a seat for a user.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to think, oh man, every time I add another user, that's another grand.
Yeah.
But now the conversation changed where it's like, Carolina, you don't need to hire another person. You can actually pay $50,000 a year for all these AI credits to solve that same problem. And all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden they go, oh, it's just 50? I don't have to pay, maybe 80 or 90 for that particular resource. It's 50,000 or call it 20,000 depending what type of work it is. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden the value conversation has really shifted. So I'm finding as I'm trying to price out the stuff around fractional work that I'm doing is kind of going down that path. So I'm still experimenting that myself. But on the Eligio side, that's something, as I mentioned, I've been talking about for years, and it's finally happening. So what the team over there is doing is they're working towards completely fixed fee models, and the reason they can do that is that the scoping and the actual planning of projects at the outset is a lot easier to do. It's a lot more accurate because we can take a lot of data that we're getting from customers and compile a really solid plan that we can actually that the team there at Eligio can feel really confident quoting on and actually estimating on. So they can go in and start doing that. So that's starting to roll out for that team. I don't know the specific dates and how that's all happening. That's Mike and his team figuring that out. But it's definitely the way it's going to go. And I feel like if people are still stuck on hourly, they're not going to be around much longer because I think that the customers are going to start expecting, fixed fee. And a great, again, picking on HVAC again, when you call someone in to install air conditioning for your home or a heat pump or whatever it might be, or any kind of like trade service, you ask, well, how much? And they give you a price. And most of the time it's going to be that price, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
not sitting there going, oh, it only took you 80 hours. It didn't take you 100 hours. Like nobody's nickel and diming on hourlies, how much effort, how much work. The trade actually goes in and says, this is how much. And now it's up to them to deliver that and maximize the profit within that. So, and if they screw up, it's going to be on, the tradesperson to actually rectify that. And companies I've worked with have been really great at that, on honoring commitments. And other ones it's been smooth sailing. And the ones that are smooth sailing, they figured out their processes and all that. They're gonna make more money. And the customer, they're gonna be happy because the price they agreed to at the beginning is the price they paid at the end. And I think that's where AI is just making it so much better for people. And that's that transition's happening. Eligio's right there, about to deliver all that, and really dialing out on the AI side. So I'm pretty excited about that. Not just as like an owner of a company, but I feel like as a customer of businesses that we rely on, they're all moving to that too. So that's exciting for me too.
Yeah, which brings me to, one of my other questions. For SMBs, transitioning into automating and the AI, in your opinion, and I think going back to that, peeling the onion layer and the layers of the issues, but in your opinion, where should they start first for automating and implementing AI? Their sales, operations, customer service, internal admin work. What do you see in the market? Like what's trending?
I think well, what's trending? I think admin work is the number one thing people look at. It's like, what things can I automate? Bookkeeping comes up a lot. I hear a lot about bookkeeping. Just imagine taking a bank statement and having to reconcile that bank statement. You can just get AI to do that, right? So it's things like that that are kind of interesting. So I think on the admin side, sales is another one too. As far as like, sales has always been about automation, like marketing and sales. So now you're seeing AI being layered in there quite a bit. But I think when you're an SMB, you like, where do you start? I wouldn't just say, oh, we're gonna start on sales. We're gonna start on operations. Like, I don't know if it's as simple as that. And going back to earlier, I'd mentioned like finding out what things give the lowest value but cost the most money to do is really identifying those things. Because if we can find things that, and some of it's like, maybe it's regulation, maybe it's compliance, those kinds of things, those areas, they're a necessary evil, just like, again, bookkeeping and all that's a necessary evil running a business. And how do you automate some of those things? So I feel like those are some of the easiest ones to tackle and also create value right at the get-go. Then you can start, okay, we had a lot of success with this basic thing. We're saving all this money, and oh, by the way, we've now got rid of this low value effort. And now this person that might have been doing the job before, we can actually reallocate them. They're now doing some more valuable work for us too. So all of a sudden, we're able to look at bigger things and just keep, again, building on that too. I think that's as an SMB, your resources are finite, so you need to also be careful where you want to tackle your time too. But I think admin's like the low hanging fruit to me.
Okay. On that note, what's the difference between using AI as a shortcut and using AI as a real business advantage?
As a shortcut. Maybe a couple examples pop in my head. You talked about talking to non-tech people that have used ChatGPT. So maybe they go to ChatGPT over and over and over and over again for the same thing, right? Yeah. They haven't created a process. So I don't know, maybe it's like filling out a contract or a document or some kind of, recurring thing that probably should be still automated. Isn't it funny how it's like, I want to automate everything, but then I go into ChatGPT and I'm still manually doing all the work. So I made it faster, yes, which is great, but I haven't actually automated.
It's still manual.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the shortcut. That's the shortcut. It's like I fired up. I bought a $200 Claude subscription. Here we go, off to the races. I think where you want to create a real business advantage is that assessing the process piece. A lot of it, the whole thing might be AI at the end of the day, but can you create clear instructions for an AI agent to execute on the steps that you need it to actually do? That's the crux of it all, right? So that's where you can create real business advantage, because now repeatable processes, as we know, anything repeatable can be scaled and can create more value. You can do that with AI, but you actually have to sit down and build out, whether it's an agent with a skill set or using a workflow automation tool to kind of incorporate those things. I think that's how you create business advantage versus a shortcut. You sped up the manual labor, but you're still doing manual stuff.
Okay, who have talked to me about targeting non-technical companies now with the new thing you're doing? Why does that market interest you more than the traditional tech?
Yeah, a few things. I think going back to the conversations, like I'm genuinely excited about talking to businesses about their problems, the issues they're going through. There's lots of things I'm thinking about outside of the fractional work that I'm doing as well as Eligio work. Like, how can I help community and society, adopt and use these technologies? That's something on the forefront. About a week and a half ago, the Canadian government announced their AI for All program, and that's $500 million investment for businesses to adopt AI. So the government wants everyone to use AI, and the reason that they want to do that, and some of the stats are pulled out, like 92% of small businesses haven't actually incorporated AI into their business, and we're excluding people going on ChatGPT, but actually in your day-to-day operation, 92% have not done anything. That's a big issue. And if you
It's a
look at a
big
bigger,
gap.
it's huge, right? And if you go even bigger, like the whole entire, all the different, like all the way up to enterprise, it's only 78% that have not adopted. So we're talking, less than a quarter of businesses have actually, brought AI into their businesses. So I think that there's huge opportunity for all these businesses to actually look at these things. And I think if you're in tech, you're probably more than likely using it.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to tech companies in recent months that have wanted me to come on, and I just like, I can do that in my sleep. That's I want something that's, a real challenge. And I feel like a lot of these businesses that are in the non-tech space, are going to be really interesting cases for me to kind of sink my teeth into. And obviously the
Mm-hmm.
numbers kind of back that up. That we really need to put some emphasis on how we're going to address that, especially as Canadian businesses on the Canadian side of things.
All right. So if you had to give advice to businesses today, well, they're evaluating their tech tools like CRMs, AI agents, automating platforms, all of it. What's the one thing you would tell them to stop doing? Yeah.
It's a lot of things I'd probably say, but I think be careful on how you approach the tools. Like, I've heard a lot of companies that are like, yeah, I got my nephew to come in and implement an AI tool for us. I'm like, okay, is your nephew qualified? Do they know what they're doing? Because you don't want to just throw stuff in there because your customers are at risk, your reputation's at risk. There's been a lot of incidents out there where some of these AI tools have been hacked because a vibe coder went in and created a new app, but he forgot to lock down the API, so people are able to pull data out quite easily. And so you're creating a lot of risks that way. So I think make sure you are talking to people that are in the know, not necessarily an AI consultant, but someone in IT and that has experience in that world. That's what I would encourage. But I think the number one thing is you should research and learn. I think that I know tech CEOs that are getting back into coding after years, sometimes decades of actually not touching code because of the excitement they get by learning and growing. And I'm not saying that non-tech people should learn how to code, but if you haven't picked up ChatGPT, if you haven't picked up Claude or Gemini, play with them a little bit. Apple has Siri AI coming out. I've been playing with that recently, and I just made a video on that one as well because I think that's cool too. Like, it really is
I'm looking
useful.
forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. And so I think there's lots of things that you just start playing with it, but then start bringing people in as you start writing out your questions and the things that you're thinking about. And then, try a few things out. But again, going back to my mentor's comments, thank you, Brian. If he's ever watches this, the think big, start small. Like, I think that's the big key part there.
All right. Bonus question. What's up? Because you and I both like gadgets and technology. So what's the one technology trend, and it can be a gadget or a technology, you think business owners are overreacting to, and one that they're underestimating?
You know what? That one's actually easy. It's AI for both.
As we
Like,
talk about it.
yeah, I
Overreacting
100%.
and so it's the same answer
Overreacting.
for both of them.
I think
Depends
it
on the
is.
person, right? Some are
Yes.
overreacting and some are underestimating.
Yeah. It's fascinating how many people, as I'm posting content online on LinkedIn, there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of remarks about, like people don't like AI, but then you got people that love AI. So I think those are the people are underestimating it, but then there's ones overestimating it. Like, all these jobs are going to be lost. We're going to create all these efficiencies. The potential's there, but I think AI is both instances on the overreacting is I don't think job losses are going to be as bad as people think. I
I don't
think
think so
jobs will
either.
change. I think they'll change.
I agree.
And but I can't remember where I heard this recently, but someone said, 100 years ago, if you asked a farmer what is a physiotherapist, they would look at you cross-eyed. Like, what are you talking
Yep.
about, right? So there's a lot of jobs, like even a programmer. What's a programmer 100 years ago to that farmer? Like all these things didn't exist then. And it's going to be a bit of a shift and a bit of a change. Again, humans don't like change. So I can kind of see that. On the under piece, I think that goes back to the stats I quoted there. 92% of businesses, SMBs, not even taking advantage of these tools, even at a very basic level. I mean, there can be a huge impact there, and I think that there's room for improvement on the Canadian business side. So
I think from what you said, my thought on it is because you referred to 100 years ago, right? Well, 100 years ago, they said the same thing with the Industrial Revolution, or however long ago that was. But,
yeah,
machines were going to take the jobs. I think it just evolves, right? And
yeah,
honestly, I agree with you on, I don't think the jobs is the issue. I think the reality of it is the ones that adopt are going to become a lot more productive.
yes,
We'll be able to accomplish more on our day to day. I don't think, or the way I'm looking at it now, I mean, that could always change, but the way I'm looking at it right now, my goal is not to replace people, but to enhance their work and
yeah,
hopefully enhance and increase their output so we can together do more. Yes, you're right. You'll see both sides of that coin, being flipped on social media, but at the end of the day, the haters are going to hate, right?
yeah, yeah,
And they are probably the ones that are going to be left behind. They are probably going to be the ones that are going to lose their jobs because they refuse to adopt. And
yeah,
then the lovers, like some of us, will be able to do a lot more than we used to do before, this revolution with AI.
yeah. I agree. Totally agree.
All right. Well, it has been amazing talking to you today. Thank you for coming and spending this almost an hour with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I hope to have you back in the near future. It's been a pleasure.
yeah. Thanks, Carolina. Appreciate it.
And for all of you, I will see you in the next episode of Digitalk Architects.